We've had conversations about these talks in China. I've heard very, very low level, and then I've heard mid-level, and then I heard that a high-level Chinese individual stuck his head into the meetings. How would you characterize these talks right now? Are they mid-level,
they're
high
at the
level?
appropriate level. From our side, it's been deputy secretaries and assistant secretaries, including a couple from Commerce. Altogether, it's a pretty large delegation because there are quite a few sets of different issues that have to be dealt with, ranging from immediate trade issues to the big structural issues, and most importantly, to enforcement and compliance. How do you make sure that they live up to whatever it is comes out of the talk?
What do you think is going better, or who's more intractable? The shutdown meeting over the weekend with the Democrats, or the Chinese? Are they equally? Are we making headway in either place?
Well, I'm beginning to think that there are language differences in both camps with the administration.
Right, right.
So I'm not sure there's also getting to be a bit of cultural difference.
Do you think, I mean, I won't mention any names, but the perception is this China thing, we're never going to get anything we really want. It's just going to be window dressing. It's not going to work. It's just a big waste of time, and we're hurting everybody because of the tariffs. Is there something positive that could come out of this or not, Wilbur, do you think?
Yeah, what will come out of it is a resolution. Are we going to go the negotiated route, or are we going to go in the original direction of higher tariffs? It's really a binary set of decisions.
What was your reaction last week when Apple announced it was going to miss its earnings?
Well, I don't think Apple's earnings miss had anything to do with the present trade talks. Think about it. There have been no tariffs put on Apple products, so that's not it.
But do you think that it has clearly hurt the Chinese economy, and therefore companies that are doing business in China, including multinational companies, U.S.-based?
Well, it certainly has hurt the Chinese economy. You look at this morning's paper, rate of growth in GDP heading down, rate of growth in retail sales heading down, rate of growth in capital investment heading down.
Wilbur, you and the president happy that China's economy is being hurt? Is that something we should be happy for because it may allow us to extract something, or do you feel guilty being happy that you're hurting a
Well, neither happy
company?
nor guilty. We had expected that this would happen because what is happening is the movement of foreign companies, including American ones, out of China already began before these tariff discussions. What that's done is focus people more on them. Not that everything is necessarily moving back here. Some is moving to Vietnam, some is moving to here and there. So the compounding effect on China is both some stuff coming back here and quite a bit of stuff moving elsewhere.
It's the world's second largest economy at this point. If that economy gets dragged down, there are a lot of real concerns that will wash up on our shores too. What do you think about that?
Well, think about how little we actually export to them. What this whole trade thing is about is they export several times as much to us as we export to them. So what we have at risk is a very small amount, both absolutely and because our economy is bigger than theirs, certainly relatively it's infinitely smaller.
But you don't have any concerns. I'm just looking at it from a global connectedness argument. If they fall into a recession, if that gets dragged through other economies around that, how does the United States withstand that?
Well, first of all, them going from 8% to 6% to perhaps something lower is not exactly a 1930s type depression. It's only a big problem in their context of having a very big need to create millions and millions of jobs to hold down social unrest coming out of the little villages. It used to be aggressive young people from the small villages, which have not benefited at all by the Chinese economic boom. The aggressive young people were leaving, going to the big cities, finding jobs. Now they're having to go back to the little village. Well, that creates a real social problem because they were disappointed in their home village. They went to the big city, it didn't work. Now they're back in the home village. That's a very disgruntled group of people that's a real social problem for them.
The way you're describing it makes it sound like you think that we definitely have the upper hand. Is that how the president thinks?
Upper hand, lower hand. I think what has changed is China now understands how dependent they are on us. The ZTE was a very big wake-up call for China. I don't think they had truly realized how much their high-tech companies depended on American ones. But you remember, when we cut ZTE off from U.S. supply, they essentially shut their doors.
And the same can be said about the future of Huawei. Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think the future of Huawei is going to be in the United States?
Well, that's a pending matter that's in litigation. There are a couple of charges that have been made. We'll have to see how the Canadians...
Is that being used, though, as a negotiating position? Because I remember when we first talked about ZTE, you said that original arrest, if you remember, was not a chess piece and all this. And then later the president effectively said, actually, you know what, it's going to become one. If it wasn't then, it will become one.
Well, it wasn't in the beginning at all, nor was Huawei. That warrant for that lady's arrest, the Huawei CFO, was issued in August, not now. It took quite a while to get to a place where they could apprehend her,
right?
Because she was clearly not coming into the U.S. anytime soon. Happened she went into Canada. The Canadians and U.S. have a very good extradition treaty, and that's what led us to where we are.
Are you personally writing this auto tariff report that's coming out on February 17th?
Oh,
You're involved with it.
It's very, very much a group effort. We've been through lots and lots of drafts of it, lots and lots of research, because the picture also keeps evolving. As you know, it has to be put out by a date early in February,
right, 17th.
Which is 270 days from when we started it.
And so what do you think finally that you're going to see the president do in terms of that?
From the negotiation?
Yes.
Well, I think there's a very good chance that we will get a reasonable settlement that China can live with, that we can live with, and that addresses all of the key issues. And to me, those are immediate trade. That's probably the easiest one to solve. More soybeans, more LNG, things like that. Second, structural reforms, much harder. That's about intellectual property rights. That's about market access. That's about all kinds of things in the list of 142 items that we submitted to them many months ago. Then the third is the hardest, which is an agreement is fine, but the history here has not been so good on compliance. So the real issue is, what are the enforcement mechanisms? What are the punishments if people don't do what they were supposed to do? And that's frankly where commerce will play the bigger role. We tend to be the enforcers.
You're going to be one of Elijah Cummings' first witnesses, apparently, Wilbur. What do you think, what does the landscape look like in terms of with Elijah Cummings head of the Oversight Committee? I mean, and what will you tell them? Will you need a subpoena to go, or will you just go fast?
Well, Elijah Cummings has been a ranking member of committees before, so he and I have had discussions in the context of other various committee hearings, so that's nothing new. And we feel we have nothing to hide, so we will deal with all of his questions.
This is about adding a question about citizenship to the 2020 census, and there is allegations that you've given misleading testimony about that. What does it stem from? Is it?
Read the testimony and you'll see it. That's not the case.
But just specifically, the question was, you said in the testimony that the Justice Department was the one that asked for that question to be added, and then later evidence suggested that you were the one who actually had pushed for this before the Justice Department ever asked, and that it sort of came via you. So true that the Justice Department asked you, but untrue because the allegation is that you effectively asked the Justice Department to ask you.
No, it's much more complicated than that. It's in litigation right now. There's another trial that's starting in San Francisco today. We're awaiting the verdict from the lower court in the New York one, and there's also a pending case in Maryland. So All of this will be discussed in infinite detail in the courtroom settings.
Do you have a feel for how this shutdown saga plays out, Wilbur? What do you think the end result? Certain people say that the border's not a problem. I mean, the president in the briefing room brought out some ICE individuals that said that that's the only thing that they really look for, that it helps. Others say all the illegal activity is coming in on airplanes or whatever. I mean,
Well, as far as I know, ICE and CBP are continuing to function just as they had been.
Right.
I'm not aware of any defections or any real shutdowns, but that's not my department.
Well,
so-
how does it? When is it going to go? Another month? Is it going to? I mean, the president said years. I don't think he
Very,
meant
very,
years.
very hard to judge. It really depends on when some sort of a détente can be put together.
Do you
But
think, with Pelosi now, with Congress or Speaker Pelosi is now Speaker, will that change things? That she doesn't need to.
Well, what it
Do you
won't
negotiate more?
change, what it won't change are the facts. We do have a big problem at the borders. There are 60,000 people a month trying to come into the country.
So how many come in on planes, Andrew? Supposedly that's not the issue. Is not the border. It's they're coming in on planes.
No, the issue is the border because
Well,
in those
I wouldn't-
places where walls have been built, San Diego, El Paso, Yuma, and Tucson, illegal immigration is down between 90 and 95%
But that's not the
since
issue.
they built the wall.
What
Well,
is
no,
the
no.
issue?
I think the issue, by the way, I think the issue is it's a semantics issue. It's a larger issue.
Okay, but
it's
what
about people
the-
being grounded on
what
two
about the
sides
plane?
of a
No, I know,
discussion.
but what about the planes? I mean, I thought
But
you're not worried about people
Terrorists who've
coming
been
across.
apprehended.
The
No,
terrorists
I
who've been
know.
apprehended.
Terrorists, but what about just
Terrorists.
illegal immigration? Do you?
There's been more people who've been apprehended for overstanding their visa
Right.
in the country than there has been
But does that,
at the border.
but is there
But
an
I don't
argument
think-
to not try to
I don't
secure
think
the
that-
southern border?
I don't think that's the
No.
argument, actually.
I don't think it is either.
None of these
I think neither
actions-
of these things have anything to do with anything. I think it's on one
It's a
side.
political-
There's President Trump says he wants this wall, and on the other side, I think the Democrats are sitting
This is
there.
administration official.
Well, he can answer it, but I
Okay,
think
well,
the
you're
question
looking
is
at me.
why does it have to be about the wall? Because I think that it's the wall itself. It's this idea of the wall and what it represents, and to some people, the wall to a country that was. Born on this idea of bringing people and being a welcoming place. That is what this is all about. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm
Well,
saying, but there's so many other issues
kind
here.
of
You
are, I
say
think.
that's what this is all about.
But that's-
you can't have a
that's
country.
why-
You don't have a country if you don't have borders, and if you don't police your borders, you don't have them.
No.
60,000 people are trying to barge in each month in the last couple of months. The vast majority of those are not even Mexicans. They're people from Nicaragua, from Honduras, from other countries. Of those coming in, 1/3 of the females have been sexually abused on the way up. Are those people that you really want to welcome in, the people who abuse those women? I don't think so.
I mean, Andrew, you've
the
seen
wall is not
you've seen
the
President
end
Obama in the past. You've seen the sound bites from you've seen Chuck Schumer in the past. You've seen everybody talking about securing the border and how important it is.
Right.
And now it just seems like
But
$5
we had a
billion.
Republican on last week who said there are places on the border that they would like to see that walls should be. There
Yeah.
are also places on the border where they don't think it's
Whatever you
necessary.
want to call it,
and
but
use
why
different-
not secure the border some way electronically? Whatever you need to
Well,
do,
this
why
is
not?
not mutually exclusive, and nor do we intend to have just the wall. There will still be aircraft surveillance. There still will be on the
Let's
ground
see how you can argue the
surveillance.
other point, that
There
you don't
may be
secure the
drones,
southern border.
but there's no reason not to have a wall when it's known by the experience in El Paso, in San Diego, in Yuma, and in Tucson.
Right.
The fact is, illegal immigration in those places went down between 90 and 95% after the wall was put up. Walls work. The wall has also become a bigger symbol, as Andrew was saying. And it's really a symbol. Are we going to be strict about making sure that the people who come into this country are people we would like have here? It's not that we don't want any people come in. We actually need immigration. But what we don't need is immigration where bad people
But Wilbur,
are forcing
what I
children
think's
to
happened
come.
here is you're having a very reasonable, nuanced conversation about this. And I think what's happened more broadly is this conversation has, both sides have dug in on either side without any nuance. And that's fundamentally what the problem has become.
Well, in terms of nuance, all these facts that I've been giving you right now, the president and his staff gave to the Democrats over and over and over. So the lack of nuance is on the Democratic side. They've heard all the facts and figures. They probably knew them anyway, but they choose to ignore them because the wall has become a big symbol. I don't think anybody realistically can say that you aren't better protected with a wall than without it. I mean, it's pretty obvious walls have a function.
You're dealing with the government shutdown.
Is it the be-all and end-all? No, but it has a function.
You're dealing with the government.
Unfortunately, become a symbol.
You're dealing with the government shutdown at this point, and while it has not affected a large majority of Americans, that shutdown, it could, as it drags on and as the paychecks actually stop for a lot of these people. We have heard some instances of TSA lines getting longer.
And is it reasonable for the Democrats to hold this up over $5.6 billion in the budget? It's less than 1% of the remaining unappropriated discretionary funding, under 1%. The reduction in aid that the president put into some of the countries that been at odds with is $1.9 billion. That will take care of the whole cost of the wall in less than 3 years. So it's not about the money. It's not about whether the wall works. This is pure and simply a political decision by the Democrats to deny the president something that's important to many Americans, and I believe is very important to our border security.
The Republicans who were in charge before this latest handover in Congress had agreed to a deal, too. They were surprised when the president turned it down for this. I think that may be why the Democrats are pushing their position at this point.
They might have been surprised or might not have been surprised, but whether someone is surprised or not doesn't change the facts. Facts are walls work. Facts are we need a wall. Facts are we need other measures as well. And the last fact is it's small potatoes. Count how many crimes have been committed by people who come in. Not saying that all immigrants are bad. They obviously are not all bad. But MS-13 didn't spring out of nowhere. MS-13 sprang mostly out of illegal immigration. And even more than that, if people are coming into the country illegally, that in fact is a crime. We ought to recognize that it's a crime. That's a different issue from do you want immigration, do you need immigration? We want immigration and we need it. Take a look at Canada's model. It's a very good model. They welcome immigration, but very, very selectively. And that makes sense to bring in people we need.